Hey everyone, my name is Max. I'm a registered dietitian and a certified diabetes educator. And in this video, we'll talk about what diabetes is, the difference between type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, and we'll touch a little bit on different complications that can happen with people living with diabetes. So we'll start off from the top and kind of explain what's going on in our bodies and when everything's going okay, what's happening. So when we eat food, some of that food, well, the food is going to go in our stomach to get digested. I'll put F for food, and then some of the foods that we eat will turn into sugar in our body. So once our body has sugar, it's going to use it mostly for energy. So our brain's going to use sugar for energy. If we're walking around, our different muscles are going to want to have some sugar too for energy. So that sugar is going to go inside our blood. It's basically like a little highway for the sugars to just go everywhere in our body. So once we eat, the food's going to get broken down into sugar, and then that sugar is going to go straight in the blood, and our blood sugars are going to rise with that. For the sugars to get used up, let's say we're walking around and we want sugar for our leg muscles. So for the sugars to go into our leg muscles, they need to go through little doors on the side right here. But all the doors are locked, so the sugars can't actually get inside, and they end up just staying in the blood here until insulin comes into play. So some of you might have heard about insulin before. Some people living with diabetes give themselves insulin injections. But insulin is a hormone that we all naturally produce after we eat. So insulin is produced right on the side of the stomach. There's an organ called the pancreas. That's where the insulin is made. And when you think about insulin, one of the key roles that it does, insulin will come in and it will act like a little key. So it'll come in, unlock those little doors here on the side, and then the sugars can actually go inside and become energy. So if everything's working well, we eat, we're going to get some sugar, the sugar is going to go in our blood, insulin, our body's going to kick in, produce a little bit of insulin, and then the insulin is going to open all those doors and the sugars are going to get used up, and we'll get some energy for whatever our body needs it for. Diabetes is mainly an insulin-related disease. So for some people, their body just stops producing any kind of insulin. For some people, they're just more resistant to insulin, so the insulin isn't working as well. So in people with type 1 diabetes, usually it is, the onset is really, really rapid, so it happens fairly rapidly. It accounts for about 10% of the diabetes cases in Canada, so it's not the most prominent. But basically what's going on, their body just stops making any insulin. So their pancreas doesn't work, it doesn't produce any insulin. So when they eat, they still will get sugar. That sugar is going to go in their blood, but it's kind of getting stuck in there because there's no insulin to help it go into different muscles and different organs. So what's going on with them? Their blood sugars are they will just keep going up, up, and up, and then they might get very sick very early. So for them, when they do eat, they do need to take some insulin so that the sugars can go into their different organs and their different muscles. For people with type 2 diabetes, it's a little bit different. So especially at the start, most people will still be producing the same amount of insulin as they did before, but the insulin isn't going to be working as well as it used to. So for some people, let's say the insulin is only opening half of the little doors, then only half of that sugar is going to get used up, and they'll be stuck with a little bit of extra sugar in their blood. And there can be different side effects associated with that. So some people will feel like they're having no energy or really low energy. They might feel tired just because they're not getting the same amount of energy in here. Some of that sugar is sticking in the blood. And the body doesn't like to have high blood sugars too, so a way to get rid of it is just by peeing it out. So some people find that they go to the washroom more often, and they might drink more water just because of that too. So two different types of diabetes, and the most common in Canada, about 90% of the cases would be for type 2 diabetes. And like I said, some people with type 2 diabetes will go on insulin at some point. So some of them, at some point, their body might start to produce less insulin, and they might need to inject themselves with insulin. But for people with type 1 diabetes, they definitely need insulin for the body to bring down their blood sugars. So the body doesn't like to have high blood sugars, especially over a long period of time. Different complications might occur with people, especially if their blood sugars are staying up for a long period of time. So some of the complications, and there's going to be a video in the future too, talking about and going in details on different complications, but some people might experience eye issues and can lead to blindness, kidney issues, heart disease. Some people will have erectile dysfunction, so things like that. So, but if the blood sugars are well controlled and if they're in target, that's when you minimize the risk of any kind of complications over the long period of time. So we'll talk a little bit about frailty just to finish this session off. Getting older doesn't necessarily mean someone is frail, but it does increase the odds of developing multiple medical conditions and frailty. Diabetes and frailty are often kind of linked together, so they can occur at the same time. And frailty does tend to kind of impact the management of diabetes as well, just because some people are a little bit less active. There might be poor nutrition, social isolation, loneliness, and oftentimes multiple medical conditions to go with it, or multiple medications too. When you're frail, your body does not have the ability to cope with minor illnesses that usually wouldn't impact you a whole lot. So even a little cold, things like that, can be a little bit tougher to deal with. And the little stressors from different conditions, like a cold, or if you have a flu, it might trigger some worse health outcomes in the end. So frailty is a medical condition. It does tend to basically reduce function and health in older individuals. And there's a list of different symptoms that you see on the screen. So basically, to be classified with frailty, you need 3 of the symptoms here. So the symptoms are unintentional weight loss, fatigue or weakness, loss of muscle strength, slow walking speed, and low physical activity. So like I said, 3 of those. For some people, they might have a variety of those ones, but you need 3 of those to be diagnosed with frailty.